Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Season Review. It's me, Guy, and I'm joined by host of Scouser Tommy's, Raw contributor, an all-round nice guy, Jim. How you doing, Jim?
I'm doing all right, thanks. I mean, I'm not sure about the nice guy thing. There's been times, when that doesn't work, but, I put a nice face on, don't I? Try.
Absolutely. You're nice enough to help me out with this podcast anyway. That's all that matters to me. Oh, but how are you doing before we get into this?
I'm doing okay, thanks. I mean, I'm sort of got used to the fact that we've not got football now, which is just a strange thing, because the season we just had, as we no doubt talk about, it's been never ending, hasn't it? As soon as one game's over, you're thinking about the next, and as soon as that's over, it's the next, and there's sort of no break in between. You wonder how these players survive. It's bad enough just doing podcasts and things, isn't it?
I know. I was talking to Eddie the other day, and it was like, we had one Raw, and then you're thinking, oh, he'll have enough time to have listeners and stuff like that, and then like 2 days later, there's literally another one, so it literally goes out of date. It's like, oh God. But yeah, we barely had a break in between games the last 2 or 3 months, didn't we? It was really busy, unlike anything we've really experienced, really. But,
yeah. It's good though. I think that's the thing though. It's good to be busy. I mean, people say that a lot. You'd rather be busy than have nothing on. I mean, imagine being a mid-table team who's like not going to get relegated, not going to get into Europe. God, just playing for the sake of it for 3 months must be off.
Absolutely. Well, we had a few of them seasons, didn't we?
Well,
wouldn't want to go back to them. God, I mean, even the year previous was better when top 4 was a fight. But anyway, we'll get into the good season. I mean, your overall thoughts on the season, because it's undoubtedly had the mix of good and bad for multiple reasons on the pitch and off the pitch. But it's a tough one to talk about, I suppose. But what's your overall thoughts on the season?
I think it was like if you'd have asked any of us, and I mean, ignore the off the field stuff for a minute, but if you'd have asked any of us at the end of the Champions League final what we thought the season was like, we might have had some sort of slightly negative comments to some extent, but as soon as you kind of let the dust settle, I think you look back and you think, well, basically think back. If you were asking me a year ago, what do I want from the season to come? And I'd said, I'd love us to be in for 4 cups and maybe win 2 of them. We'd be laughing about how greedy I was or something, And that's the thing. We won 2 cups out of 4. We won arguably the lesser half of the quad we were going for, but it was still 2 cups more than most other teams have won, and 1 cup more than I think any other teams won. So I think this season alone, I'm quite happy with that. I think to do that after the season we had last time as well, when you started to wonder, in the back of your mind, were we just like one season wonders when we won the league, which we weren't because we won the Champions League before that. But you still have these doubts, and you still wonder, has the magic gone? As people sussed us out? And I think we answered that brilliantly. And I think that's my overall feeling on the season, that, we kind of responded to a hellish COVID, empty stadium, depressing season, when there's part of me thinks that we shouldn't have bothered with that season, but not just because we lost, because it was just difficult to watch. No entertainment value to me. And then this season, I mean, it's been almost the exact opposite. It's been entertainment every single game. There's just the odd game where maybe we've not been that entertaining. We've been kind of stifled a little bit, but it's been exciting. It's been fun. I don't think there's a single, every game, if you take it just on its own merits, has been good to see. I've been a couple of games we obviously not enjoyed, but even then, the sort of games that you're getting into, and I know it's disappointing. Yeah, we didn't win the league. Disappointing. Yeah, we didn't win the Champions League, but we won 2 trophies. We got as close as anyone could. I mean, we really couldn't have got much closer than we did for either of those competitions that we didn't win in the end. And, it's anyone that's sort of giving you stick anywhere, whether it's in the office or on social media about having a failure of a season, just like smile and laugh back at them and don't even respond. because they know deep down they would bite your arm off to have that themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I think only Man City fans and then you just go, well, you bottled your Champions League semi-final, so you can laugh back at them. So
again, you always have to wear the again on.
You do. Even when they get to a final, it's you bottled it. But yeah, it's undoubtedly. I think the further away we get from the Champions League final, you look back more positively at the season. But have you got a favourite match from the season?
I think it's quite an early on one, and you kind of almost, I wouldn't say almost forgot about it, but there's so much happened in the season. It felt like it was a long time ago, but almost to the point where you had to ask yourself, was it the season just gone? But it was when our mate Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, was it, whatever his name is, can't say his name, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was at the wheel. So you only know the words to his song, not how to say his name. And we went to their place back in October, and the final score was Manchester United 0, Liverpool 5. The sort of scoreline where you've got to put the score in brackets afterwards in words, because people might think it's a typo. That game was just. I think one thing I've said in the past is with all due respect to my friendly other other quarter of Liverpool friends who support the other team in Liverpool is, and I don't mean Liverpool reserves, that other one, Everton, is that. For the last few seasons, you've gone to a derby game and you've laughed. You've basically laughed at some point because Everton, you've just laughed at Everton because you've played, you've beat them, you've made them look silly, and you just ended up laughing. And you laugh at all the anger and the fume and everything from the rest of them. And that's what happened in this game against Manchester United. We just literally played them off the park, and we had the game won. It was 5-0, and there was still I think 50 minutes had gone, and it was 5-0. They ended up with 10 men, but we were already winning 5-0. And I think there was almost a point where we started to feel sorry for them. And it's just, I think, as a one-off game, in the end, it didn't count for anything. It didn't win us the league. It made sure we were in next season's Champions League. But other than that, it didn't win us the league. But as a one-off game, it was just how far they've fallen and all this abuse we've had. Because I can remember when we kept winning the league, I can remember being at Anfield and there were fanzines and T-shirts telling them how many years it was since they'd won the league and how many times we'd won it and all this stuff when we were gloating at them. And to me, it felt like at the time, it wasn't sort of arrogance. It was like a bit of fun, a bit of a laugh. I always felt Man United fans were arrogant even when they weren't winning things. So when they started to turn it round and we were struggling and they were winning, they weren't nice people, I don't think, a lot of the time. They weren't even people that you thought were okay. Once they got into football mode, they were kind of miserable, nasty people almost at times. And I think not all of them, but enough of them that it wasn't easy being a Liverpool fan when you had to listen to that all the time. There's also all the other stuff that they get involved in that matches the stuff they sing that they shouldn't sing. So when we just came to that game and we just literally wiped the floor with them, we just showed them the gulf between the two teams. It just felt like poetic justice for all those years of hassle. Maybe they're laughing now at the end of the season because we didn't win the league, but you know what? We didn't win the league even though we beat them 5-0. It was an amazing game. It just felt like we were really sort of gelling now. We were really showing things. The contrast between that and, as I said, last season, that was one of the moments when it felt like, this could be the season to remember. That I think that just felt like we were becoming unbeatable. And Gary Neville, I think, probably spent the whole game complaining about how bad Man United were. But you know what? However bad they were, we were so good. They still would have struggled. We were just so good. But it was a bit of everything. The good, the bad, and maybe in the commentary box, the ugly.
Yeah, that was a fun day, that one. Basically most of their stadium leaving. Well, I don't think it was half time but when they're showing that clip of all the fans leaving. It was like 30 minutes in. So it was astounding, that game. I mean, and to beat United, was it 9-0 on aggregate throughout the season as well? It's just,
that's it, 9-0 on aggregate, exactly. And they didn't score against us and they let 9 in. And that, in a way, sort of, their best player is their goalkeeper and he let 9 in,
Yeah, I mean, even at our worst, we were never that uncompetitive in a game that should mean more to the players. So it kind of sums up the problems with them.
Yeah, because that's the thing. I think that's the thing. One of the things with Liverpool is we could go through a season and really test out against whoever was in the top 3 of the league, even in our bad years, and maybe we'd get a result or a draw. Not a draw, if not a win, sorry. maybe lose narrowly by the odd goal, but we'd really put a fight up. And the frustration for us all those years was that then we'd go and lose against Norwich or someone.
Yeah.
And that was the frustration. But they didn't even put a fight up against us, which just... And I literally was just laughing out loud throughout that game. And I wish I'd been there, because obviously after the match as well, all the singing, because we were locked in, but the UKers were singing away at them. I doubt there was anyone hanging around afterwards for trouble, though, from the Manchester side of things. Pretty sure they were all
70 minutes early.
Yes.
Be a long way. But have you got a favourite moment? Does it come from that match, or is there another specific one?
There's another one that it sticks in my mind, and it's stuck in my mind over and over and over again. And it led to us winning a trophy, but I think it was in the Carabao Cup final, or the League Cup, or the Rumbelows Cup, or Milk Cup, as some of us like to think of it. It went to penalties, of course, and it was so frustrating to sort of see Tuchel think, right, I know, I'm going to take the keeper off and bring my penalty-saving keeper on. And obviously, we'd played that game with our reserve keeper, who Klopp had just said, come on, Queeve, get in. You've played all these League Cup games in the build-up. You can play the final, which I think says a lot about Klopp, a hell of a lot about him, to not bottle out of that decision, because a lot of managers would have come up with some story about how they decided to change it for the final. He didn't, and it wasn't because the cup didn't mean anything to us. He knew what it meant to the players and how good he could be in this situation. So Tuchel just obviously brought his keeper on for the penalties, and to be fair to him, he didn't do too bad as a goalkeeper. He saved stuff, but no more obviously than our keeper saved. So obviously you get through the sudden death, then you get through the first five, then it's down to the sudden death. And you're going through each player, and you're thinking, oh my God, is it going to be down to the keepers? And even then you're worrying, like you're thinking, well, I don't know anything about our keeper. Can he take a pen? And he did. I mean, he took it in typical goalkeeper fashion, but he did. He scored the pen. So now it was sort of, I don't know, it was just like, it just felt like it was just going to go all the way round again, and it was going to be here forever, because they had this superhero, Kepa, who'd come on for the penalty shootout. But of course, it was his turn to take one. And as far as I'm aware, that ball still hasn't landed. I just thought it was just poetic justice that he's brought this player on. I think it's just a cynical thing to do. You know, you sort of, even before, you can't bring subs on after the full-time whistle. You've got to bring your subs on before full-time. So to just do that, I mean, there's part of me thinking, I wish we'd just gone and scored against him in open play, you know. I wish we'd done something like that. But no, I think that's just poetic justice. Seeing that ball sail over the bar, not just, though, obviously, because it made Tuchel look a bit of a fool, but because it meant we'd won our first cup of the season. And that just sticks in my mind. It was just a bit of everything. I think poetic justice is my theme for this season somehow.
Yeah, I think that my favourite, it was the same as my favourite moment. When mine was more when Kepa got subbed on, and the result of it being funny as hell.
Yes, that's it. It's just like, you know, I mean, the other guy, the guy they brought off, had just been through with shootouts in the African Cup of Nations, hadn't he? You know, it's like, it just, everything about it just made me laugh.
And was their best player on the day as well.
Yeah, I think, yeah, and that's it. And it just sort of, I don't know, it just changes things, doesn't it? It must have. I don't know what's going through his head. I'm pretty sure that Tuchel's like ruled by superstition, though. You know, the way they wore the yellow kits when they played us last time at Wembley and stuff like that. So I expect more weirdness, is what I think. Yeah,
apparently he's getting more power this summer, so it's going to be an odd one at Chelsea when they've just got a picture of Tuchel's face as the kit or something like that. But yeah, that was a great moment. I think it almost made us fall back in love with the domestic cups as well this season. So yeah, really adds on. But we do have to flip that question on its head, and we have to go through the worst match and worst moment. I'm guessing most people will answer this in the last couple games of the season, but worst match for you?
Right, yeah. I mean, there's part of me could think the worst match was the Champions League final, but in all honesty, I think what happened off the pitch overshadowed anything that happened on it, and I hardly even thought about that match itself since. All I've thought about is what happened before and after, and of course that's we could talk all day about that, but we won't today, and I'm sure we will as time goes on. We'll talk about it again. But I think obviously the game when we actually didn't win the league wasn't the worst match, because we played okay in the end and we got a result. But I think it goes all the way back to, it was just a bit of a miserable time and a bit of a worrying time. A couple of months after we'd beaten Manchester United, we were heading into this sort of the famous December sort of banana skin time of the season when teams can start making mistakes and slipping up, and we'd had all the COVID stuff going on where we were sort of having to miss games because other teams couldn't fulfil the fixtures, or players were missing from training, and it just felt like it was all getting a bit stop-start. And instead of being this mad intense loads of games in between Christmas and New Year, it was just all over the show. The league table wasn't being honest, the sort of thing anymore, because everyone's playing out of sync. And then we played our old manager Brendan Rodgers, and this is the game that stands out, because in Leicester beat us 1-0. I don't think we played particularly well. I think we kind of it was almost as if we were intimidated by the crowd in what is really quite a small stadium. So just the whole thing about that night just felt awful. Not just the result, but the way we came about it. Now, whether that ended up being a bit of a turning point for us and we sort of realised that we can't carry on like that, but that 1-0 defeat in many ways is what lost us the league. If we'd have played to our full potential that night, we would not have lost. The least we would have got is a draw, and a draw would have probably been enough for us to win the league if, all things considered in terms of where the pressures would have been as the season went on as well. It just felt, miserable. And so it's a game that's kind of almost in history now, but I think really that's one of the main reasons we lost the league. And I think you can argue that we drew a lot of games as well, which is obviously the other part of the reason we didn't win the league. But to me, that night, we were better than that. And it was one of the nights where I think there's times, if I'm going to be critical of this Liverpool team, it's times when we go into games and we don't sometimes you don't need to be in top gear to win a game, but sometimes you don't need to expect being in bottom gear is going to win you a game. And there was a few times we did that this season, and in the end, we found the gear we needed and got the result. But sometimes you can't do that. And when you're only conceding, I think it's 60 odd minutes in, there's not enough time necessarily then to find top gear. And we just did nothing. We just created so little, and it was just a miserable time. What a way to end the year.
Yeah, I know. That Leicester one, it was a tough one because Brighton draw, to be fair, Brighton were quite a good team. Brentford started the season so well when we drew with them, but that Leicester, when we played them, they were just dreadful. I think they just got beat by Man City like 6-something or something like that. So yeah, to lose to them, it wasn't great at the time. So yeah,
it's the added Brendan Rodgers factor.
It is,
isn't it? You've not just lost against a team called Leicester, you've lost against Brendan Rodgers, who's now going around saying he's better than Klopp and things. Well, let him say that.
He definitely has that, like, as a wall hanger in his office or something like that. Picture of that.
He's had loads of DVDs done on it.
He does, just on that one game.
Yeah.
Oh, God, yeah, it's probably true. Worst moment. Now, this can obviously be off-pitch stuff, which you kind of alluded to, and we've danced around a bit, or on-pitch stuff, but it's up to you, Jim.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think I was thinking to myself, let's keep it to actual football. I think what happened off the pitch in Paris was a disgrace. There's people in the French government who make our government look almost like members of our government should keep the jobs. But I feel for the French people. They've got a government that seems to be just as bad and ignorant and stuck of its own backside as our government. So. But I think once I get started on that, I'm not going to stop. So I'm going to stick to football in moments. And it wasn't long before that in many ways it was the worst moment. And I think it was that sort of thing where with football you've always got hope. You're always hoping and hoping and hoping. You've got to believe that things can happen. Istanbul is an example of that. You might think, it's all gone, but it's not always all gone. And I think we went into that, it's the last game of the season, we went into that thinking it's not going to happen. I mean, as much as we love Steven Gerrard, his team aren't going to beat Man City. They're going to be 2-0 up within half an hour. And that was kind of true, except it wasn't that way around. The score was the other way. And so we had hope. We had real hope because Villa were winning. And although you're thinking that's a long time for them to hold on, you know what? Villa could maybe do this because they've got you could start really seeing City rattled. Meanwhile, we're not playing great on our side, on doing our half of the battle. But, as we've seen throughout this season, we always seem to find a way, unless we're playing Leicester, we always seem to find a way to get the goals we need. And I think it was just that moment when I realised that City had made it 3, that there was no way now that Villa were going to come and make it 3-3 or anything else. They weren't going to, Villa were out of it now. The league title was over. And I think it was the actual moment was when Salah scored that goal. thinking he'd scored the goal that won the league and knowing he hadn't. It's that. And I think that's the moment that I think, if I take away anything from the season, it's that everything you play for from the whole season just comes down to those moments, literally moments. So I'm going with that. It was a disappointing, depressing, miserable moment to be in. But as I've said already, when you reflect on the whole season, it's what we've done to be in the position to be disappointed like that. It still shouldn't be taken away from us. We've done so much. It was, Salah having a bad spell, finding his form again, maybe, it's just so disappointing. But that's football, isn't it? And there's always another season.
Absolutely. And we'll come on to the next season after this next question. But player of the year?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many, and it's difficult really to sort of pick one out. I always hate doing this because you feel like if they're all sat in front of you now, the players, like waiting for you to tell them which one was your player of the year, there'd be so many disappointed faces and you'd feel bad, but they're not here. They're maybe not listening. If they are, I'm sorry, lads, but I've got to pick one of you. Pretend it's you. But I'm going to go with someone that actually wasn't with us for the whole season, and that is our wonderful signing from January, the month when you should never sign new players, Luis Diaz. He's just been, I don't know, I just think he's been a breath of fresh air. I think he arrived at a time when, I mean, really, we just thought we had the best player in the world in Mo Salah, who then kind of went off the boil a little bit after being in the away with his country in the AFCON. Mane wasn't quite up to scratch how he was and stuff like that, but they were still phenomenal players and had been all season. I think you look at Trent and what he's done to create stuff, but there was just something about Diaz that just kind of like, I don't know, it kind of refreshed us, revitalised us, reinvigorated us. It was just like a real genuine breath of fresh air. There's so much good about him. He's good on the ball. He's fast. He's strong. He's skillful. He's clever. He's got the strength. I mean, literally, if you were sort of like on FIFA, I mean, I don't know how you'd rate him on FIFA, but you're going to have to give him high settings on everything because there's nothing he's not good at, I don't think. He's even good, he's good at defending, good at getting back, good at holding the ball, good at sensing danger. There's part of me thinks that we used to have the song, it's about a team of Carragers, but can you imagine a team of Luis Diaz? Because I think he could play, I could imagine him actually getting his goalkeeper shirt on him, and sticking between the nets if we were stuck and not doing a bad job at it. He's just such a good player. It's obviously only half a season with him. We need to see what happens next year. But, in many ways, with all the sort of speculation about what's going to happen to two of the front players, it's just so good now as well to think that we've got him who is just starting on his Reds journey and wants to prove himself for Liverpool. And we've got him for a good while to come and still got plenty of years in him. Whatever happens with the other front men, I think it was a wonderful signing, and 37.5 million as well. When you compare that to the 100 million Manchester City played on their wonder signing, I think, God, it's just
not bad, is it?
I mean, you can almost get 3 for what they paid for that player. Yeah, I'm telling you now, he's worth more than 3 of that player himself. It's just unreal. So yeah, Luis Diaz gets it for me. But apologies to all the other players like Andy Robbo, Virgil, Fabinho. I could be here all day, but absolutely. And of course the keeper. Yeah. God, you can't forget about him. He's won us so many games. But no, I'm giving it to Luis Diaz this season.
If you are a player, let us know, and we'll do propaganda. That's how it works.
Yeah.
Just DM us, me or Jim. We'll let the higher ups know, and propaganda will start. That's how it works. Is there a podcast that you've been listened to or been a part of that you've particularly been, I don't know, either proud of or enjoyed doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that just doing Scouts of Tom is getting into that this season with Jay. I mean, it's been good to get into it again, and Jay, being from a sort of younger generation than me, I think he likes to mention now and again. But it's true, we see things in slightly different ways, but we see them from the way of being from this part of the world, where maybe there's things that we do without thinking that you sometimes have to explain to others, and it's good to get the opportunity to just explain why we think things a certain way. And I think the events at the end of the season, that was my favourite podcast on Scouts of Tom, is because Jay got the chance to explain what it was like to be there, and for me to sort of explain the similarities that were flowing out between what happened then and what happened in 1989. And the differences as well. I mean, the differences being that the social media, that the media have seen the evidence, that the world has seen the evidence, that people are on our side, that instead of having to spend decades getting people to realise what the truth is, that people can see it straight away. Obviously, establishments and governments and corrupt organisations being what they are, there's still a lot of fighting to do to get the truth out. But it was just good. And I think I've said this already, that anyone who was there that was struggling, or anyone who watched it and was struggling because it brings back memories, the thing to do is to talk. And, I feel privileged that Jay and I get the chance to do that and to talk. And hopefully by doing that, give people a chance to sort of think, well, okay, it wasn't just me then that felt this way. And I think there's been a hell of a lot of that as people have had the chance to tell the story. So that was one of my favourite podcasts that I've been involved with, as was in fact and you were the Raw that we did straight after the final, because we were still finding out what was really going on. We were still getting messages through off people. And I actually jumped off that Raw to do a bit with Sky Sports News.
Yeah.
And I never expected I'd be talking about anything other than a Liverpool win or a Liverpool defeat, and really being happy or really being sad, but all football related. And of course, it was neither. So yeah, that's I think that's the podcast I've been involved with the most this season, that I've taken the most pleasure out of doing. It's not even pleasure, is not the right word. The right, I felt have been the best ones to do. Yeah. Yes, yeah, because we're lucky to have this platform. We're not the media. We're not the mainstream media. We're not a newspaper that's trying to sell papers with fancy headlines, or a mainstream outlet that's trying to get sound bites that sound good but maybe aren't really representing anything. We're not we're here for the club and we're here for the fans. When the club steps out of line, we'll tell it. When our own fans step out of line, we'll tell them. But we're here for us. We are for us, and that's we're in a privileged position to be there, and and that's thanks to people who listen to us and appreciate what we do. But we appreciate the fact they listen, and that we're all part of. I hate to use the word LFC family, but we are part of a big group of people with the same thing in mind and the same needs. And at the moment, what we need is to make sure that never happens again.
Absolutely. Just a quick eye on the season coming up there. I mean, transfer one's almost pointless asking, seeing as one's about to drop, whether it's today or tomorrow or over the weekend, but we're seemingly about to spend 80-odd mil on Darwin Núñez. But do you want or expect any other business outside of Darwin, unless we do a full Nabil Fekir there, but any other players you want to see come in?
I think, yeah. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I try and stay out of all the transfer window stuff, because I've just seen what it does to people over the years. It breaks people, because you start to hear rumours about players coming in and you start to picture them in the team, don't you? And you start imagining how good they're going to be. And then it turns out that we don't buy them because we didn't quite put enough of an offer in. Or maybe in reality, we never did have an offer in and the agent's been stirring stuff up and things like that. It's just, there's so many people making stories up and so many people tweaking stories a little bit just to help their side on things, So as much as we say that, I mean, Liverpool are watertight now in terms of letting transfer information go out, but you're not going to stop an agent from thinking, well, if I just leak this to this guy, it just sets a bit of interest up and that puts a bit of an auction in place and maybe I can get the money to go up. Agents are not nice people on the whole. I've never known a nice agent. If anyone's got one, if you're listening, you're a nice agent, maybe you can convince us otherwise, but no, I try to stay out of it. But that said, without naming specifics, and I hope the person you're talking about is right, but I'm kind of trying to keep my eye, trying to keep away from it just in case. But look, I've got so much trust, more trust than I've ever had. This last few years, more trust than I've had in years about what we do in the transfer window and what we do with our transfer business. We're all worried about whether Sadio is going to stay, whether Mo's going to go, whether we're going to lose them on free transfers. But that whatever happens, we'll do what we can. If we can't do anything, like with Gini, we couldn't persuade him to stay. And in hindsight, it's got to be because of the money that he was being offered by his new club, because all of a sudden they get to play without they can give him the money they would have spent on a transfer fee. We can't do that to keep players. It meshes your wage structure up. If we can't find a way around that, so be it. We just got to do the best we can. And the important thing this summer is not to stand still. So even if we weren't losing players that we don't want to lose, you couldn't just say, great, carry on as we were, because there's players getting older, there's players who are becoming less and less useful because they're just not quite getting in there. They're not knocking on the door enough. So you can't stand still. You've got to improve, got to improve, got to improve. So, yeah, you're spending if we do lose 2 front men, we need to make sure they're replaced. If we know that we're losing one and another one's going in a year, we need to make sure that we replace one now with someone who can hit the ground running, and the other one needs to be someone who, over the course of next season, becomes the replacement in time for that player to go. We don't want to be left in the lurch. So if you can get a Luis Diaz who's just going to come straight in and hit the ground running, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
But as we found, say in the back four with Konate, he needed a bit of time to bed in. By the end of the season, we had an outstanding centre-back that maybe became outstanding because we gave him the chance over the course of the season to be that. So, yeah, I won't name names. I just think we cannot afford to stand still. Nobody else will be standing still. And as long as it's not Harry Kane, I'll be happy.
Announce Harry Kane. But expectations or the reality of next season, we probably know we'll be competing with Man City for the league. I mean, is that just the expectation? Just be in the league picture and then Champions League, get to the semi-final and see what happens?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got to sort of... I mean, it's that cliche that's been trotted out by Liverpool managers for decades, and Klopp and his squad still use it, which is to take each game as it comes, win the game in front so you don't think too far into the future. And that's what we've got to do. But the thing is, what you can say to yourself is if you do that all season and if you take your chances and you play to your best of your abilities, you've got a chance that by the time we come to the end of next season, we'll be looking back and thinking we went for all 4 trophies again. Now, it may not happen. You can go out the League Cup unexpectedly because you played a young team, and it just doesn't quite go your way. You can go out the FA Cup because it's the magic of the FA Cup and all that. But I think, they're the domestic cups. But the League and the Champions League, they really are the bread and butter for this club. We've got to be challenging for them. And obviously City are going to be the biggest people blocking us on the Premier League. And in the Champions League, there's going to be plenty of people trying to get in our way. But I think we could we're good at managing usually good at managing our group games. And then when it comes to knockout, it's another story again. We're just generally speaking really good at handling knockout games as well in Europe. So yeah, I've got high hopes. I mean, I hope we go a long way in the Champions League, maybe even win it. I mean, Klopp was talking about booking his hotel, and I kind of get where he's coming from on that. I think, we've played so well. We didn't lose a group game. We only lost in the knockouts when it didn't matter because it was aggregate that mattered. And it's been an amazing run in the Champions League. Why stop it? We need to carry on with it next season. In the league itself, although we're feeling disappointed that we ran out of steam to some extent in the end, we didn't. We were nowhere near the league title at Christmas, and then all of a sudden we were pushing it right down to the last day. So we need to carry on with that momentum. So without kind of saying, I want us to win the league, I want us to win the Champions League, I know we can challenge for both. If we carry on like we have been, keep the belief, keep the players that we want, replace the ones that are going to go properly, just stay behind the team, stay together. It's like you see all these other clubs and the amount of toxicity from fans towards their clubs because it's not quite going the way they want. Everton nearly got relegated because of the toxicity that the fans created against the club and the players. Mm-hmm. Manchester United are not getting into the top 4 because of the toxicity at that club, from the fans to the players and the managers, whoever comes in, and to the board. We are so much together as a team and as a club. Let's keep it that way. We're going to make mistakes, but you know what? Klopp and his players learn from them time and again. When we get something wrong, we learn from it. Transfers with the transfer committee or whatever it's called these days. I don't think they use that phrase anymore. But we learned from all that. We went wrong with that and we've got things right. Klopp's learned from his mistakes and got things right, and the players are doing the same. So, yeah, my hopes are that we can challenge on everything. My expectations are that we won't go out of anything without trying really, really hard and doing really, really well.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's it, Jim. That was the last question. We'll be back with the second half. I'm not sure who it will be yet. I'm going to aim for Jay Reid because it makes sense with the other half of Scousers Tommies, but we'll be back in a sec. Hello and welcome to the second half of the season review. I am now joined by Jay Reid. How you doing, Jay? It's been a little while.
Yeah, as I was just saying before we started recording, it was a long season, not only for the players, for the fans as well. And also for my bank balance, as you know, the cost of living in the UK these days isn't cheap. So neither is the cost of football.
Trips,
Paris
and London. It's not a good mix.
Paris and Wembley all combined means June is a month off. And as I said, I'll be watching cricket and saving money.
Absolutely. Nice little come down on after the football season. But that is why we're here. We're here to look back at the season. Money, regardless of not, some good memories, some I imagine bad ones that we'll get into. But your overall thoughts on the season?
I suppose the end of it sort of feels like a little bit of a dampener, as most people have been saying. But on the whole, I think I've always said all along for years and years, well, I'd always like trips to Wembley. So to actually get to two domestic cup finals, I actually was lucky enough to get to the FA Cup semi-final and the final. To go to Wembley, it's just a special day out. It's something that's embedded in you from a young child, really growing up in like family stories of, uncles and dads and cousins and so on and so forth, all going down and having these trips to Wembley and days out. And I think I've been to the Millennium Stadium a couple of times where we've won trophies, and then I think the last trip I went to was the unfortunate League Cup game in Klopp's first season, where we lost to City on pens, I think it was.
It was the Sacco concussion game, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, like my overriding last memory of Wembley really was a pretty poor one. So it was nice to get back there and, bag two of them in the way that we did.
You not got to England games, Jay?
What's England?
Yes.
So, yeah, it was just nice to do that. So I think if you were going to score the season, you'd probably go like a 9.5 because, you got to the last game of the season, you had that moment thinking, is it going to happen? Like that horrible rumour that was spread around the ground where it was, I think City had gone 3-0 down, and you're like, oh my God, it's on. But we actually weren't even top at that point. We were drawing. And then, Paris was a shambles from start to finish for myself personally. For a lot of other fans, the game actually has just become a blur of what actually happened in that trip. So I don't really remember much of what's happened in the game, and I weren't going to put myself through watching it again because
why would you?
Why would you really? Yeah. So it's just sort of one of the things, a bit like Kiev or Kyiv, however it's being pronounced these days, with the current political climate.
Still Kiev to me. I don't know. Kyiv stuff came out of nowhere.
It's Jim. Jim says Kyiv, and it throws you off when we're recording. So I just go with Kiev because that's how I've always known it. We had that final against Madrid, and it was also like a sour taste in the mouth of sort of how that one ended. But soon after we got Fabinho, and 2 weeks later, as we record, it's not officially done, but Darwin Núñez might be done by the time this is out.
I said that. I think me and Jim talked. I think we recorded first. It was meant to be close then.
Yeah, so it's Monday afternoon. He's somewhere in the northwest, I think, having a medical. If Adam's plane's tracking his right, he's either in Blackpool or he's somewhere down the M57 or the M6 or somewhere or whatever. He's in the northwest apparently. So,
yeah.
Fingers crossed that by the time this is actually out and in the listeners' ears, that he's in the red shirt, he's done all the Kirby leans and the nice photos and all that.
Some
business.
chicken a lot.
Yeah, I'd love to know what Scouse Cup they're going to come out with for him. But yeah, that's it puts you back in a positive spin, a positive frame of mind. I'm glad there's no football now, but it was a really good season. Like, we nearly did the impossible, and that's why it is impossible, because it's so hard to do. But yeah, like, season of our lives, we were all like living for the moment, and it was just good to be back in there after what came before with a season of no fans and celebrating the league with no fans. It was just nice to be back in the crowd, and obviously I'm one of the privileged ones who gets to go every home game. I know some people aren't as fortunate as I am, so you take that for granted up until now, but now you go in there, you're like, wait, well, you make the most you can, because football without fans really is shit. It's not even nothing, it's just shit.
Yeah, absolutely. The second half of that season, last season particularly, were it's just dull. It's like void of emotion. That's probably it's just nothing. So yeah,
it's sort of banked in with like the Hodgson era, where like, you just forget that existed and you just move on from it and go to the next season.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just almost not canon of football. That's probably how you'd put it.
Yeah.
Did you have a favourite match? I mean, you mentioned the 2 cup finals there. I imagine that'll be a popular pick for many people who are on this. Is that one of them, or have you got a particular match in mind?
I've got a couple. I know you've got moments and that coming up in a bit. But I think personally, probably the semi-final against City. You know, being such close rivals in pretty much every competition. To go there and the performance we put up in the first half was sensational. We ran the show like Thiago ran the game. Trent was awesome. Diaz was a thorn on the side. I still don't know to this day whether Mane shinned it or meant to volley it off his foot. I don't know. But it was just a really good day out. Like the whole, you know, as I said before, the Wembley experience. Like few of us went down on the trains and stuff, come back on the trains, give a bit more to Man City fans who happened to be on the train back with us. It was just a good vibe, like a good day out. And yeah, there's other games obviously that people have picked, but I like to go for one that I was in attendance of, really.
Yeah, it's one of the games I wish I was there. I'm not allowed to go to games now because I'm a jinx, but...
Yeah, we know this.
Yes. Maybe pre-season friendly. A community shield at a push, I reckon. But yeah, one day maybe. Favourite moment then?
There's 2, and I know the obvious one is what probably everyone's going to go for, is the United game and just seeing a mass walkout because, you know, you're a little bit younger than me, but, you know, people of all Liverpool ages have been through that sort of doldrum of United fans always rubbing it in your face, always sticking it to you. And to go there and do that to them, I don't think they've ever come to Anfield and done that to us, but to do that to them in their backyard, in the first half especially, was special. One that, like, it actually become funny. You were enjoying it and then it just become funny. It become like comedy that we were that bad and we were so good. And then, you know, taking the piss out of them in the second half. But
it was relatively early in the season, wasn't it? I think it was still the first third, wasn't it? In
October,
so it wasn't like the second game where it was like, yeah, Man United are dreadful. There was still hope that Man United were at least a top 4 team then. I know Ollie was kind of on the verge of getting sacked, but it was like, there's still talent there, and then they played us, and it was like, oh no.
And they still didn't sack him after that. I mean,
yeah.
I think it was a week or 2 later.
Watford, wasn't it?
I mean, Watford is so bad, and he had to put himself through that, which, you know, it was good to see. And just one more note, it was a moment that I was in the ground for where I didn't expect anything from it, was actually Tahi's goal against Leicester in the Carabao Cup. You know, it may be a bit of a hipster choice, but going into that game, obviously seeing the team, it was heavily rotated.
Leicester put out their first team as well, didn't they? If I remember correctly.
I think we had Cometio at centre half, and maybe we beefed it up at half time, and went a bit stronger. But you know, even going into it, like we were in the mindset of under Klopp that the domestic cups, you know, you give or take.
Was it an AFCON game? I don't. It might not have been that way, but I think we brought on Jota, didn't we? I don't think we had Mane and Mo there, did we? I might be misremembering.
No, it was just pre-Christmas.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, it was like the 20.
We might have just left him at home then.
Something like that. But either way, like, you know, we weren't expecting much, and we went a couple of goals down or whatever, and then just that like release at the end when like Tahi smashes it in. And the whole cop just went mental. Like, we've not really had that much this season. Like, I was thinking back the other day listening to Dave and Carl's pod and, like, thinking of moments in the season and stuff. And we haven't really had, like, a European special at Anfield. We've not really had... We had good moments in the league against big teams, but, you know, like, the Spurs, City, Chelsea, we drew with all them. Like, United was a rollover. Everton was laughable. And I just thought, like, that was a moment where the whole ground just went absolutely mental. And it was like, it's Minamino, the lad that everyone's put down and sort of overlooked and don't know if he was going to have an impact on us. And he stood up in that competition. He got us to the final. He fully deserved to get his medal for that. But yeah, it was just because it was the end of the game. And, you know, Leicester are a bit of a horrible team. They've got Vardy, they've got Schmeichel, they've got a horrible fan base who don't really care for any sort of compassion towards other people. You know, it was just nice to stick to them, and then obviously at the end it was Jota giving it the old hand to the ear, wasn't it? When he scored. So yeah, it was just that moment. Really, it was just a little bit special.
I do like that shout. I do like that one because this kind of season was a re-falling in love with the domestic cups, and that moments like that is probably the reason why. All equally as so as the finals and the semi-finals. Yeah,
it was just like. Maybe at that moment you sort of thought, well, you know, we're in for this now, because I think that was the quarters, and then we went through to face Arsenal. And, you know, Arsenal won, didn't they, at Anfield 0-0, we must remember.
And we were avoiding playing them because we were scared of them.
Yeah, all that business. But it was probably at that moment that you thought, yeah, you know, we're in the semi-final, I'll give this a crack. Like, and we did, and we won it. And obviously it weren't the greatest final in the world when we got there, neither was the FA Cup, but it's sort of these things that, you know, keeps the lads involved, the likes of Tsimikas, the likes of Minamino and Origi has moments in that competition and stuff. You look at the squad and you think, well, look at other teams who've got such like fractured squads and unharmonious people within them, and then you got us where like everyone just seems to be happy, and it's reasons probably like that with the domestic cups where Klopp makes even like the youngsters like the likes of Tyler Morton and whoever played him. I think they had like
Harvey Blair popped up.
Harvey Blair popped up in against Preston, and there was probably a couple of others that Conor Bradley.
Cade Gordon, yeah, he had a few. Didn't he get a Premier League game?
Cade Gordon.
I think
in one appearance in the league, off the bench maybe, and I think he got a start against Shrewsbury and another start in the Carabao. But you know, it's why we're so successful at the moment, because you know, if you are a young kid coming through, there's a clear pathway. You know, there's signs within the team, like Trent's the obvious one, but you've got the likes of Jones there as well, and even Kelleher in goal has made his way through.
Yeah, nice story with him.
It just probably all means like why we're so good and why we're obviously attracting players the likes of Carvalho, who's coming in the summer. Like, you're 19 years of age and looking at Liverpool going, well, yeah, like there is no reason why I can't break into that team and have a go. So it all just adds to what we've got at the moment, which is a really good feeling. And, you know, as we've always said all along, like, what a time to be a Red. And it really is, because we have been sort of through the mill for years and years, as I say, like the shadow of United and, you know, Chelsea and City, and you laughed at for years because you've not won the league. And then, you know, now we're the old saying, we are back on our perch, well and truly back on the perch, and we're competing for absolutely everything, and there's no reason why we can't do it again next year.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll come to that in a few questions, because it will be interesting. Yeah. We have to flip the question on its head, though. We have to flip on the worst moment and match. Worst match, there's probably a couple picks here, but with you going to so many games, it might make your answer a bit more unique. But have you got a worst match?
Yeah, and I didn't actually go. It was Leicester away. Because it was between that gap in Christmas and New Year, and it was just like for personal reasons. We went out, like me and my friends, we always gather together between Christmas and New Year and go out to have a few drinks and stuff, and you might not see each other much through the year, so we focused our whole day/evening around like making sure we got the game in, and it just killed the absolute vibe of the whole night. Like sitting and watching that, we couldn't even hear the commentary properly because it was awful.
That's not a bad thing nowadays, to be fair.
True, but like you at least like to know like maybe sometimes what sort of vibe you're getting. But it was awful. Like it was cold, it was wet. You know, like trudging around Liverpool can be quite windy as well in the winter. And it just killed the whole vibe of the night. And you know, we only lost 2 games, didn't we, all season in the league? So that and West Ham, and I think it was just the whole performance. We'd beat them in the League Cup, as I said previously, like a few days before, and they were in the bad
just battered them, I think, as well.
Yeah, but and it's Brendan as well, and his shiny white teeth, and it just sort of felt like we didn't deserve it. Obviously, like no one deserved absolutely everything in football, but to them, like the way they'd been playing, they were so poor, and it just felt like you want to forget that game. Like West Ham, you can sort of dismiss, I think, and there's not been many other defeats across the season.
They were quite good as well, to be fair, West Ham.
Yeah, and I mean, I know the obvious one would be the Champions League, but as I say, I sort of blanked that game out my memory.
Yeah, and, well, it might come into your worst moment because we all saw through Twitter and stuff, but you actually experienced it. And is that your worst moment, or do you just kind of blank that from memory, as you say?
It probably would be. It's the scariest moments. I've never been scared of a football match. I've been to Goodison and stuff, and that can be quite toxic, as whether they're winning or losing, as we've seen this season, it can be toxic on their own fans. But when you go in there,
different though. Everton, it's kind of toxic football-y behaviour. Like, I've never experienced it in person, but whereas from what we've seen, the crush of fans, the targeting by locals and stuff like that, it's just not something I assume you don't experience in this country.
Yeah, well, like the one thing I never thought I'd do, like in my 30s, would have to be texting me mum and telling her like I was in the ground safe, and then I'd got back to my coach and I'd made it
Jesus
out of Paris. Like my mum and dad were on holiday, and I'm texting him, and then like with my brother, he's like sending messages back home to me nan and stuff, and sending my girlfriend messages, because she was seeing what was going on. Like, you should never have to go to a football match and have to tell your loved ones that you're safe, like getting into a ground, getting out of a ground, and like getting back to your coach and stuff like that. You should never have to do that. So that's how frighteningly scary it was, like for me. And I'm not really scared of most things, but it was just nervous and horrible. And yeah, it's something you never want to go through. Nobody should ever have to go through. Like, we thought that the dark days of football were well gone, but that's certainly brought a lot of memories up for other people who experienced like the likes of Hillsborough. Yeah. On my coach coming back, there was older fellas who was just saying like that was worse than Hillsborough because it was all around the ground. It wasn't one end. It was everywhere, like just hostile. And yeah, like there's plenty of stuff out there on it, and it won't be laid to rest. That's the good thing. There's so much evidence that is out there now, and fans have got, and French officials can delete the CCTV and so on and so forth and lie through the teeth. But in this day and age, the modern day with social media and camera phones and videos, like
it's mad. It took Madrid to put their hat in the ring.
Yeah,
that's a scary thought.
It won't be laid to rest so easy, and we're very thankful that nobody was seriously injured. There was obviously people come out of there with cuts and bruises and
emotional damage, more so.
tear gas damage, and emotional and mental damage. But thankfully, nobody was seriously injured. That's the only bit of solace you can take from that game. So yeah, hopefully we'll never have to experience it again. And that ground, and maybe just the French authorities and French sport and setup maybe takes a cold hard look at itself and really should be removed from having Olympics and Rugby World Cup.
I think it happened at the rugby the week after, didn't it, or something like that? I think there was another game.
Yeah, and then the French national team played there, and there was football team that they had a lot of mess and stuff. Once is a mistake, but several times it's clearly a systemic error. And yeah, I think if we get Paris in the Champions League next season, it'd be very interesting. If anything, I'd be more of an advocate that we don't allow fans in our country of theirs, and maybe we don't travel, because it'll stick one up to UEFA as well. Maybe if we refuse access to fans and our fans just outright refuse to go, because it's not a nice place. Like, as much as, you know, it's meant to be the city of romance, so there was nothing romantic at all. And it wasn't just the ground, it was other parts of the city, the fan park and stuff, which was actually located south of the city, and the grounds in the north. So it wasn't just the ground for me.
Away,
It just felt really hostile. And as we were saying before we recorded, it was meant to be in Russia. We probably would have been a bit safer.
Yeah, you were at Madrid as well, weren't you? And
yeah.
That's apparently chalk and cheese, wasn't it?
Oh, it was glorious in Madrid. And I know, like, Jim went to Kiev, and he said it was like one of the best trips he ever had. So it you know, it's a systemic error on their part.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get back on to hopefully the somewhat more positive stuff. And Player of the Year, I mean, there's a few you can easily debate here. Maybe some people think it's one of one with more, but have you got one particular?
Yeah, it's Trent.
Oh, nice. Bit different.
Yeah, well, you know, I said this on a different podcast I do as well, and I just thought, like, he's just improved so much and more defensively, I think, this year. Like, obviously, actually, again, queuing up going to the game, you maybe see things that you don't see so much on television. That is positioning. Once or twice he's been caught out, but, you know, that can happen to everyone. But there's one-on-one defending, especially, I think, has gone so much better. There's covering across the back line, especially.
Yeah.
You know, his assist numbers are up there. I just think, at his age, there's nobody doing what he's doing, and the obvious ones obviously are maybe Salah, Fabinho, maybe Alisson, Virgil. But, you know, I tried to look at, like, who's done, you know, an
most
improvement
consistently as well.
Yeah, and apart from, like, the last month or two of the season, but he's absolutely shattered. And I think the only thing we could maybe now look for him to improve on is maybe his set piece deliveries from corners and his free kicks.
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
we played a game in the ground of, like, will it beat the first man? Yes or no?
First man or not reach the box here.
Yeah, like, you know, we'll have a pound bet, and who's up and down by the end of the game, who's got the most up or downs on.
The only good thing for Trent is that Robbo's probably worse at corners.
I know, and as a fan of the NFL, you have, like, designated kickers to come on, you like think, can't we just throw, like, Costas on just designated corners? But yeah, like, his free kicks as well. Maybe we have something different with next season. Maybe Diaz might have a chop at them. Maybe Nunes. Maybe someone else in the midfield or whatever.
Yeah.
You know,
sign Ward-Prowse. That's what Jay's saying.
No, unless he's a designated kicker.
Yeah.
Just, you know, I think you watch them in the warm-ups. Like, you don't see this on the telly, but when you're in the ground, you'll sit and watch, like, the bending these free kicks and shots into the top corner. And you think, like, is a wall really that difficult? I mean, I'm not a professional footballer, but you'd think, like, if you practice it day in, day out, you should be able to get it over the wall into the top corner.
At least near. Like, if it's close, fair enough, but it never is.
Yeah, but I think, he's just been so consistently, like, improving. And, like, what is always funny is Trent can't defend, and he's compared to Reece James and Kyle Walker and Wan-Bissaka. And, I don't watch England, and I'm glad, because he's a wasted talent. It'd be frustrating if he is. If anything, it's a blessing that he's overlooked by Southgate, that he thinks that other people are best than him, but that's his choice. He has to live and die in that waistcoat, not me. Yeah,
it's funny that it's taken England losing or screwing up 3 games in a Nations League for people to maybe think, maybe Southgate's not as the best manager in the world. But, you know,
who would have thought?
Who'd have thought? Middlesbrough's failed manager.
You should know better than anyone in that neck of the woods.
Well, he's probably one of the best, considering Gordon Strachan after that, but that's a different show. I like the Trent shout. He was excellent. I like the defensive improvement shout, even though you simply can't defend, obviously. But yeah, I said Robbo's name there. I think if you come, Trent's kind of maybe not equal footing with Robbo, but Robbo had a bit of a mixed year. But I don't think it's too big a gap between them defensively nowadays. So yeah, that's a testament to Trent. You've obviously been long was going to say affiliated, probably the wrong word, but it's what I want to add. You've been doing AI pods for a while. We used to do the fantasy pod, but this season you've teamed up with Jim. Is that your podcast of the year? I know you did the old school at the end of the season after Paris, but is there a pod with Jim or another one that you're particularly proud of or enjoyed doing?
I tell you, probably the last one that I actually did with Jim, like after Paris, because it was quite emotional and raw, and he's got the Hillsborough memories, and it was hard in terms of as we said, what we spoke about and stuff, but there was a lot of comparisons there that we could put together, and Jim's of a few years older than me, so we always put that sort of comparison across with our podcast of the old and the new sort of thing, or the semi-modern and the older generation that Jim can put on it. And we've got a couple more lined up for the summer, so be listening out for them.
If you're a young Scouser, contact Jay or Jim to be the third generation.
But I just enjoy, obviously it's like speaking with someone you go to get, a family member or someone you've always known all your life, because he's
your uncle that got you into football or something.
Yeah. But obviously, the last one, it was quite emotional in terms of what we said. So that sort of sticks in your mind and stuff. But other ones that I listen to, I do like listen to the Jan Mulby ones with Trev, because I like his random swearing outbursts as well. That comes out but he swears in the Scouse accent, which is good.
Does.
But then you'll get the occasional Danish accent and on other things, and obviously you don't really get that on many other platforms. You're getting a regular. You
always get TV people, and Jan's just himself, by the looks of it.
Yeah, you're just getting an honest guy who's been through it all, and he's not going to mince his words. So if there was a shout out for another podcast to listen to, obviously there's several. You know yourself, you're always in the background of most of them.
You're probably sick of me.
But, I like that one because it's it sort of doesn't always have to be what's on trend or on recent games. You sort of go around the houses, as they say, and touch on several topics. So that's one I do enjoy listening to. And if people haven't listened to me and Jim and want to hear more of us, there's always something that we have to talk about. And quite often we only touch on what's going on recently in the games a little bit, and tend to go a bit off-piste now and again. So
don't we all?
We've got a couple lined up. I think hopefully we get one done as we record today is Monday. I think we're going to try and go for Friday this week. So hopefully by the weekend we'll have something else out there, and then we try again and maybe in a week or two. It's just marrying our schedules up early, because I work shifts and Jim works office hours, so we try and fit it in when we can. But every couple of weeks usually is how we do it.
Yeah, do check out Scouser Tommies. If there is one later this week, hopefully the Darwin pods are out the way by then, but God knows with this schedule. But that's kind of what leads us on to is transfer window hopes or expectation. I'm touching wood, don't worry, but barring a Darwin Fekir situation, it looks like he'll be the second if you count Carvalho, which you should count Carvalho, but he'll be the first big signing, let's say that. Do you want more? I mean, we've got that Ramsey kid linked. Do you expect more after Núñez?
Realistically, probably one. And then I think as lads have touched on transfer programs, it'd be if there was outgoings, they may tempt our hand into other places, such as obviously Gomez or Tsimikas or maybe Kelleher going out on loan or whatever. That may force us into an issue of maybe recruiting elsewhere. But I think obviously we all know the glaring issues midfield, and you just want something a little different. I'm probably in the same camp as Dave. I'm not Jordan Henderson's biggest fan, never really have been. I've never not denied it. I know he brings certain things to the team, but quite often it's just a bit plain, and sometimes it would be nice just to have a little bit more spice and variety. And
I think it does stem beyond Henderson as well, to be fair, just to bring a bit more balance. But yeah, I think
of course, I mean, there's there's issues obviously with fitness regarding Keita and
Thiago's like
Thiago
one player. It's like one player, isn't it? To be fair, so
yeah. I mean, I wasn't just going in and bashing that lad. It was It was the point of like, you know, we've had them for so long, and maybe it's like a bit similar to Mane, really. Like, you've had the lad for so long, and you've probably squeezed all the juice out of that lemon that you can, and there's not much left to give other than, you know, the occasional burst here and there. And, you know, obviously the target was Tchouaméni, and we all thought it was probably going to get done, and it didn't. But
I mean, you are ITJ. Have you got any info?
No. I'm not, like, from where I got that Thiago one from, I've had a couple of snippets over like the last year or two, but nothing concrete. No, that was just, I think maybe that might have been my just freak one flash in the pan that I just happened to know that he was on a way for the medical and someone was there, photographed him and whatever. But yeah, we just need something a little different. When you look at, you know, we do compare ourselves to Man City quite a lot, and they've just got a bit more variety in midfield, haven't they? They've got a couple more attacking midfielders or people who can play in midfield.
100 mil squad options, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, the Carvalho who's come in, the young lad, I don't know where he fits in, but you can't put a lot on his shoulders. I think it was mentioned by yourself and what pod was listening to? Would you on?
I'm gonna have to narrow it down. I'm on too many.
When you were
was it with Carl?
Carl,
yeah, the scouted. Yes, yeah.
With Curtis Jones and stuff, like, I'm of the idea that maybe Curtis does need a loan, but we would need to bring in an attacking midfielder for that. Because maybe, you know, between Carvalho and Elliott, they could sort of fill an attacking midfield role as such. But I do think he needs like a Conor Gallagher sort of loan where he gets out there and plays regularly at a high level, and then we maybe reap the reward. I mean, Mason Mount's like the classic example of that for Chelsea, and they do it quite well. So hopefully a midfielder, Ramsey comes in, Núñez will be out by the time this is out. That's probably us then, and if that is, that's fine. That's just as long as the midfielder one doesn't roll on through the summer. We like to be quite efficient and have these lads in before like pre-season starts in probably 2 weeks or something like that. So that would be nice if we can get him in or get the lad in like before like mid-July, so we can give him a good month before the season begins.
Yeah, absolutely. But that does lead us on to the last question, which is expectations for next season. You mentioned Man City there, who we are obviously in battle with most seasons for the title. Is that what you expect? I mean, them, especially with the Haaland signing that got confirmed today, they're probably favourites, but we have to be in that conversation, you'd say?
Yeah, next season for me is all about the league. I know, as I said before, it might sound a bit hypocritical, but we had our Wembley moments, and another one would be lovely if we could get there again, just in one of them. And the Champions League, obviously, we always aim to do that because of the affiliation we've got with the Champions League / European Cup. But for me, I'm all in on the league next year. To come so close so often, and the one that we've only won, we didn't really celebrate properly. It just sort of feels like we need to do it. Like, not like we did with the 30 years of waiting for it, but it would be so good just to do it for the fans, and getting so close within a point twice in 4 years. And as I say, we wrote off the COVID year, and the other one we won it without fans. It was just something I think we really need to go in for, and I think the 5 subs will help us next year. We'll be able to juggle the squad a bit better. I think the World Cup, for what I know, I don't do international football, but I'll probably watch a few games of the World Cup, and probably not them will be England. Yeah. But it throws a massive spanner in the works. Nobody really knows how to handle a situation like this because it's never happened before.
And off the top of my head, I think Man City probably have more key players going. Moore's not going, Diaz isn't going.
Yeah, I went through this the other day with someone. Robbo won't be going. Matip won't be going.
Trent probably won't be going.
Well, if he goes,
yeah.
Kanate, who knows, because he just got in the French squad.
And apparently, Fofana was meant to be his pick as well, but he was getting married, so they didn't take him.
So
good news for us.
Go for the squad like Fabinho, maybe starts. Who knows? Because Casemiro
and Fred for some reason.
Henderson probably doesn't start for England. Thiago probably doesn't start for
Spain. Is he? No.
As you say, Diaz isn't going. Mo isn't going. Jota, 50-50 with Portugal. Depends what mood they're in, whether Ronaldo wants him to play next to him or not. And Nunes will be going, but do they just go old school and just go away?
Cavani, Suarez,
just for the last hurrah. So you go through our squad and you're probably only looking at like 4 or 5 regular players. And I think, we'll go into the World Cup. I hope if we're not within touching distance of City, that probably won't be a problem. But I think it would be a good psychological factor just to, look at the table for 4, 5, 6 weeks, however long it goes on for. I don't know. If we are within touching distance, or even if we go top, like if we have a good solid start, because I think last year, if I remember rightly, we didn't start too great. I think we were sort of mismatched, and I think that was when we drew to Brentford, drew to Brighton at home, Chelsea at home, City at home. We sort of dropped a few points at the beginning of the season where if we start strong and put our foot on the gas and get ourselves points on the board.
I think that was the difference in 19-20, wasn't it? We just started pretty much perfect. 18-19 we did as well, but 19-20 I think we literally were perfect, weren't we? So yeah.
Was that the one when we went up until like February or whatever, when we went to
Watford
before
Watford
we lost?
Game, and then everyone was drunk, wasn't it, for the City game?
What are Watford doing these days? Since getting Ollie sacked, beating us.
Beat us, get Ollie sacked. They're just a horrid team.
And there's probably 4 different managers in between them reigns. Yeah. But yeah, I think, it's what I expect as a title challenge more than anything, because, we'd love to go for the Champions League, and we probably realistically will be in the conversation for at least the last 4, because we are one of the top teams in Europe. But if someone offered me right now, like, you get to the last 4, or you even go out in the quarterfinals, like unlucky or whatever, but you are in for the league, I would take that right now, because you just sort of feel a little bit uneasy. Like City 4 out of 5 now, you don't want to be getting 5 out of 6 if you can just wedge a couple in there and disrupt them a little bit.
You think anyone will be able to join us in City?
I don't know. It's all if buts and maybes in a transfer window business, but Chelsea and Spurs, I know that's very easy to pick because they were 3rd and 4th, but Spurs looked a lot better second half of the season under Conte.
Although they are rumoured to be buying Richarlison, which doesn't help.
Well, we've had this conversation in work today, and the lad next to me seems to think he's worth 65 million, and I nearly fell off my chair.
Was there a decimal point in there?
I said, like, bloody hell, 65 million. I went, are you sure that's not about 40 million overpriced? And he was like, well, we paid 50 for them. I was like, yeah, and you got
that's
ripped
your
off for
issue.
that. That's your whole downfall of the last 10 years or whatever it is since Moisey left. Like, you've just been a shambles paying 50 million for players like that. But yeah, I think, if Spurs got the right players, they could arguably get a little bit closer. Chelsea, if they sort themselves out, they've proven that they can be a challenge. I think the main issue for us is we've got to win our home games, especially against the big boys, as they are put. And then see what the rest of the league holds. It will be a little bit closer. It'd be interesting. I don't think Arsenal will be any closer with European football. United are an absolute shambles. It won't get much better there. And then down the league goes down the league. I think what will be interesting is, as we've touched on Richarlison, how the F do, because
Calvert-Lewin's rumoured to be going as well, isn't he?
I do fancy Fulham and Forest to come up and give it a real good crack. Not overly convinced on Bournemouth.
Bournemouth, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they might buy somebody off us who we don't really want for an inflated price. I can't really think off the top of my head who we might want to let go. Maybe enough Phillips. Yeah. But I do think, a bit more bad business from them, which is their norm, their go-to, and Frank is not a good manager. It would be good to see them dragged back into it, because that did become quite comedy as well.
Yeah.
Just like that was the fun part of the season, just seeing them go through all that mess and all that mire and disruption and heads falling off and whatever. So yeah, a title challenge for us, another relegation battle for them, and I'm happy.
Absolutely. Right, that was it. Thank you to Jay, and thank you, Jim, for the first half of the show. I'm not sure who'll be hosting out of the next one, me or Nina, but we'll be probably back next week. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.